Good morning, everybody in Facebook land. So I knew that words are chemistry, and words have been used to mislead people and as well as inform them based upon context or intention. So you can always give somebody the facts and then also qualify those facts with your perception of those facts by supplying a narrative to then get a person to do something relative to their intention. And so the English language is by far, I would say, the most confusing, which I could see why, ESL students have a hard time with trying to figure out all the different slang, the euphemisms, there's the same word with different meanings. You're like, what the heck? But there is a method to the madness, because every single word that's used in the English language is representing also science. But you won't know that, because if you're just in the context of English and speaking, you won't realize that every single time you speak, every single time you, put forth information, there is a scientific chemical reaction that is applied to it. And so anyways, and so what prompted me was this whole thing with viruses, antibodies, is viral programming. And we learned that antibodies, there are plus antibodies and minus antibodies. So there's antagonist antibodies are negative, and there's agonist antibodies that are positive. And agonist antibodies promote growth, okay? But why don't they say agonist antibodies? Why do they always just use the word antibodies? Because if you actually qualify antibodies in science, especially out there with an intention, is to take away, then you don't want to say, well, we have antibodies that also add in growth and take away growth. They're a viral programming. I mean, you don't hear any of the mainstream media talk about the viruses run everything. Viruses program everything. So when they use the word antibodies and they couple it with protection, then you're like, protection from what? From pain. Oh, so then it's antagonist antibodies that are taken away from you, not adding to you. But you're like, well, then you're going to think that, well, shouldn't you grow, right? And so you're like, well, okay, food is growth, right? So you don't make the connection that viruses can add growth, because viruses are also the programming that tells the body how to replicate, at what rate it needs to replicate, and why it needs to replicate. And so it's like, oh my God. It's like, even if you know this stuff, like these physics majors and these biology majors, it goes right over their head. I mean, it took me 5 years to figure this out. And so when I figured out that antibodies are also positive, they're agonist, and they're also not only positive, and yes, they're negative, which means they take away, they enforce the code, right? Which is the same thing as positive, but they're also viruses. Okay? Antibodies are viruses, and they're in mucus. That's the thing that people don't get, is that that's what mucus is. It is the coding for, it is coding your body. And when you're trying to kill off your mucus by sucking it out and not releasing on your own, or you're using herbs and stuff to stop the mucus, you're stopping the coding of your body. And so I looked at the English language, okay? I looked at the English language, and I'm like, okay, let me look at all the parts of speech. And it's no different than when you're in a lab, and the lab has a prototype. Let's say it is like this human, or it could be a cell, could be like, let's say, like a yeast cell, okay? So the noun is the prototype, which is the yeast cell. The adjective is a word or a combination of things that negate, take something away from that cell, or add something to it. It combines. So then there's that positive and negative. So when you negate something, you're taking away from something. What is that something? It's a noun. It could be anything, a person, place, or a thing. And then when you add something to something, you're positive. You're adding something to it. So there are adjectives that either add something to that noun or take something away. No different than when you have this petri dish full of little, yeast cells, and you're applying solutions that will add something to that yeast cell or take something away. And then the verb tells you at the rate of which the adjective is affecting the prototype. So a verb, it's like when you're running, right? This is your body running, okay? And so you could be running really fast, you could be running really slow, and that's all based upon, physics and then, all the different formulas. But when you're in a lab and you have this petri dish and there's a very strong solution, then that verb tells you at what rate is this solution affecting the prototype, and it's qualifying it. Oh, it's doing something good, whatever good is, or it's doing something bad, whatever bad is. But good and bad are relative to the intention of the outcome. If the outcome is to destroy something, like taking Henrietta Lacks' tumor cell, and you're adding a solution to something that is supposed to lower the life force, then you're taking like an antibiotic or an onion or an herb or something, right? Whatever it is in a large amount, or salt to neutralize it. And you're seeing at what rate is now the life force being depleted, or at what rate are you adding energy to that life force? And so the verb tells you at what rate. Okay, but then the adverb tells you, is it good or is it bad? See, this is where it gets kind of crazy. Or it tells you, well, no, it's a way, it's qualifying. Yes, it tells you if it's good or bad. Okay, so now this verb, this rate of motion, this rate of energy is now being qualified with an adjective. That's going to be either, it's going to take away or add something to it, and also qualify it with, a perception, good, bad, evil, whatever. Okay. And so then you have a pronoun. A word that implies the prototype with qualifiers, but not the exact prototype, like he, she, it, it doesn't give you a specific, it's a non-specific way so it's like taking a clone. So instead of saying, okay, this is a yeast cell called John, and you want to take a clone from that yeast cell, and now it's called not John, now it's called an it. Now it's called a he or a she, right? I mean, I'm serious. This is so freaking scientific, it's insane. And I was thinking about this this morning, like, oh my God, all the English language is telling you what they're doing in science as far as the rate of effect and all these, it's insane. Okay, so anyways, and then preposition implies time, like before and after. Oh, when a person gets some kind of exposure to a variant, are they going to feel feelings before, or how they feel is after or before or after they, been exposed? So there is a time before that you're in some kind of like space of reality or being. And then when you get exposed to something, there's a time after you've been exposed, and there is a, rate of being or something. And so the prepositions implies the time, before and after a verb is, and an adjective is being applied, and how it's affecting the prototype, the noun. Okay? Modifiers, right? You've heard modifiers. So conjunction, intermediaries in between 2 points. Okay, so conjunction words, will connect two like ideas, right? And you can look up those conjunction words. But it's an intermediary in between 2 points, triggering cause and effect, causing a hybrid. Now, it's not a portmanteau, but it's like taking two things and combine it. And so they could be two opposite or two negative and opposite. So two things are negative and opposite that would make it a misaligned statement. But a conjunction can definitely mislead somebody when you're taking two, you can take in two arguments that are one's invalid and one's valid, and then cause a belief. Okay, like saying life is death. Is the conjunction. Is really life death? But no, that's how you can lead someone to believe that life is death or death is life. So conjunctions is combining things, and it doesn't matter their reaction. I mean, it does, but then you can qualify those reactions with, something to make someone feel like, oh yeah, everything's great. Okay, so an interjection is emotion, extreme emotion. Okay, interjections like, the exclamation point. It's a feeling statement. It's the rate, the intense of the rate of the chemistry applied to a prototype. So when someone screams out major pain, that's like exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Well, that's the same thing, when when a petri dish with a little yeast cell has all this stuff applied to it that makes it very explosive, that also is an interjection. That's a exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So when a human represents the energy and emotion from a cell based upon the solutions and the things applied to it, it's like a macro level reaction, chemical reaction. That's really all parts of speeches, is macro level reactions to chemical reactions. Okay, so then you have number, a number modifier of a noun showing distinct specific behavior. So like 12, TWELVE, right, versus the number 12. Okay, so that modifies, non-specifics, or modifies specific behavior of a noun. So you have 12 dogs, 5 mice. And so, the 5 mice, there's a prototype, and then there's the clone. There's like 5 of them because they're all clones, right? But there can be the specific behavior of a noun, but you can't have 12 Johns. I mean, you can, but they're all different. But you don't want to imply that the 12 Johns. Then there's a context. Well, what are you trying to say about 12 Johns? Well, 12 Johns walked into a bar, and you can go into a joke. Anyways, I'm going off. So then an article, it modifies a noun specific and non-specific. Okay, so B specifies a specific A and A, okay, or determiner. Okay. And A, B, specific A, and, okay. Okay, modify noun specific and non-specific. B specifies a specific. A and, okay. B, B-E. Yeah, so B-E, so B and A and, or whatever. These modified nouns and specific. So, okay, the, not B. What the hell? It's the. I got to correct that. Hold on. Because I don't want, like, what the heck? The, like, the dog, the cat, it's very specific. And then A and is non-specific. And, an apple. So usually, what is it called? And a vowel. If there's a vowel, then there should be, if something starts with a vowel, there should be A and. And if it's a consonant, then it's the. I think that's one of the rules from a while back. The, okay. God dang, I hate talk to text. Okay. All right. I had to correct that. Okay, and then okay, okay, and that's the same thing as a determiner. Okay, so then what had me see this is because antibody genes, mucus, are all under viral programming, and so the antibodies are made up of different lipids, like in mucus, lipids and fats and proteins and DNA and all that stuff. And then the antibodies then tell you whether it's plus or minus, but they don't qualify that in the mainstream. But the mainstream is trying to say, okay, we want to attack and not have you feel this virus. So every single time you feel it, we're going to have something in those antibodies, in the vaccines, yes, to take away any type of energy that you will feel from that evolution from that virus. So they're telling you, yes, they're taking something away from you every single time you get exposed, and you're going to be exposed. So every single time you get exposed, the body is going to take away something. It's going to attack that cell that has those algorithms. But, when people don't want to feel pain and they're against something like this, that's when people don't take them seriously, because if you don't want to feel pain and you're anti-therapeutic and you're also taking therapeutics, like herbs and doing even J juice in reaction to, so you don't feel anything, then you're actually aligned with what they're doing, but you're also resisting it. And so then, yes, that's where people make fun of people, because they're like, dude, you don't want to feel pain, you don't want to feel any kind of symptoms, and this is supposed to do that, but that's not, people don't understand their body, and so they take on wars that they know nothing about. And so yes, so the viruses are the programming, and that's what is being withheld from the population, is that viruses are programming, microphages and macrophages. And when you are bypassing your first lines of defense and second lines of defense in the medical holistic industry, then you don't have control over the programming of your body. So those macrophages and microphages are being controlled through all the pills, powder, supplements, and detoxes and all the different apparatuses. And then they also coagulate. They also send off conflicting programming. So then you have cancer, you have autoimmune disorders, you have chronic conditions. You may be very obese, with so much conflicting programming. So you have a lot of intel, but it's not organized. Or you may be so underweight that you don't have enough intelligence to make proper choices. And so you're coming from a very one-sided point of view, which is, I see that in the people who are vegan and vegetarian. And I'm going to bash them right now. Yes, until we have a bioengineered meat that has everything you could possibly want in an actual piece of meat, then you must eat the meat. And if not, then you will lack the intelligence to know what is good for you, because you are your environment. And so, yes, when someone is so underweight and they're eating twigs and nuts, they're not going to have the proper intelligence to protect themselves. Okay? And so when you have so much meat to you and so much fat to you, then you have all this intelligence, but it's coming out very disorganized. And sometimes you have glimmers of like, oh, wow, this person's really smart. And then, then you see the emotions, because the amount of hormones that are so cattywampus that they can't control their hormones. And when they get triggered, it's like, holy crap, because the amount of intel that you have and emotions along with that. And so that's why a careful balance between not having too much data in you and to make sure that you have the data in you, that it's completely aligned and everything is proportional. And that means your emotions are proportional. Your way of ability to think is proportional. And when you are an activist, or when when you're taking a side in politics, religion, or science, you're taking part in other man's wars that you haven't figured out your own. And you're gonna lose because you never started the war. And the Jeju starts a war in your body that you can win because you have now control over everything. And so, actually, even the people who don't really say too much, they're trying to be like, they don't want to divulge too much of their position, but you can see it in their politics. Okay, you can see them promoting, something, with like American values, patriotism. And where patriotism comes from. It comes for dying for a cause. It comes from being so brave and also so fearful that you're willing to bypass your first lines of defense, telling you your gut instinct that something is wrong and you may or may not survive whatever you're going into. And so the only way the general and the platoon leader can get you all to do something is by saying, oh, you're brave. Okay? And even being fearful, it means that you won't do something. You will you will just not do something to change your behaviors. And so, so you can see it, even those that are not boisterous on Facebook, but you can see who it is they back up and why. You can see their ideologies. But I'm telling you, human sacrifice is huge in politics, religion, and science. Okay? Because science is it's a study of phenomena. Okay? And the outcomes of phenomena. And then applying a narrative based upon intention. And so just because something is science doesn't mean that the science is correct based upon what you think something is. You say you want to live and you're applying antibiotics to your life. Well, no, you don't want to live, but the science says, okay, well, life is death. When you're combining two completely diametrically opposing types of chemistry, then you're in equilibrium. You're not going to evolve. So right now, what they say life is death is only for those that are in that equilibrium state, that are holding their cured state for a certain amount of time. Those are the cute girls in our society that haven't aged and they're relatively mature. But at some point, that cured state of life is death is going to be then death is death. And they'll go on that decline. Because when you have plus, and minus, okay, it's like equilibrium. When there's no activity to either bring you to evolution or de-evolution, like you're in a hermetically sealed environment like beef jerky with salt as a cure. And that could last forever. I mean, if you bury a beef jerky in its hermetically sealed environment, you know, 100, 200 years later, through all the different stuff, it might still be there as long as there isn't like huge heat that's going to fry the earth and fry the plastic. But yeah, I mean, so the English language and viruses, mucus, and gene variants, they're saying, oh yeah, autism and gene variant, yeah, it's virus. Every single cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorder, neurological condition is viral related. And why does that virus, you know, active in one person's body and not active in another person? It's all biochemistry. And then they create then all these different types of cures and, you know, therapeutics to try to stop it. But I mean, it's all experimental because you're not getting to the root cause. Is that person is malnourished, low sodium diets, they can't handle pain, or they could probably handle it, but you don't think they can handle it, so you don't give them any opportunity. And yeah, they have atrophied neurological synapses. And so no, they're not firing off on all four cylinders, they're only firing on one cylinder. Until you wake up those different neurological impulses, until you wake up those nerve endings in the brain and allow them to fire, and yeah, it's going to feel pain. I'm telling you, I felt pain from the headache from COVID the last couple of months, like in June and July. But I just fed it beef. I ate a steak when I was feeling the headaches. But when you're constantly taking your Advil and your Motrin to stop the pain and stop the headaches, then yeah, you're atrophying your brain. And then guess what? Dementia. That's when the brain completely just says, okay, takes a shit. And all your memories and all of everything that you ever knew in your life is gone. Because memories hold energy. Energy is memories. Then you got to have the covalent bonding. And so, you know, I tell you what, this is about understanding viruses, understanding everything in your environment. Because no matter what, you know, when people say, oh yeah, you know, the outcome of this therapeutic is that you have an interruption in your fertility, right? Or an interruption in your menstruation. Well, yeah, I never got the vector, but I was around people that have. And also in the air. As soon as you cough, you're blowing out spores. I don't care if you wear a mask or not. Nobody wears a mask 100% of the time. Even dogs, my dog, you know, she got exposed to a few variants because there's, you know, things in the yard and all that stuff. She coughs. She coughs on me. My body takes in those spores and it releases what it doesn't want. It takes in what it wants. I feel a little bit of heat sometimes and then the heat goes away. But everybody is exposed to spores, and some of these spores have programming that will interrupt your period, your menstruation, and you might be like 60, 70, 90 days late. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're infertile. It just means that it's an interruption. Okay? And so everything that's in the therapeutics that are being mass produced, that's why all of you that are afraid of them, if you're going to resist the therapeutics, you're not going to make it in this next world. You're not going to freaking make it. Well, why don't you get it? Because right now I don't really feel like it. When they make it, like at this point, I'm going to go out, because really the reason why now I'm not doing a therapeutic, not because I'm morally against, and I hate needles, but not that I'm morally against it. No, I'm not. It's the fact that I want to see when I get exposed to a new variant, how my body's going to react. And then after this fall and winter, starting next year, yeah, I'll go get the variant. And by that time, either they're going to have everyone on lockdown and say, okay, everyone that's not whatever, please, you know, and I'll do it. I mean, I have no problem with it. But the thing is, I want to test my body to see without the variant how my body will handle a very aggressive environment. And I already experienced a pretty aggressive environment this springtime, which, you know, then the fall is going to be aggressive. So will the winter. Well, the winter will be like incubation. The fall, you'll have everyone freak out because all the variants from the summertime, because everyone's hanging out in the summertime, forgetting that this shit exists. So you have the winter where everything is incubating and people are still going to be, you know, dying and whatever. Then you have spring, and then all the pollen and all that stuff is going to be floating, you know, through because of the springtime and the wind and the rain and all that stuff. So don't be afraid of the therapeutics. Okay? Do not be afraid of the therapeutics as far as the mass produced ones for the public health. You just have to understand that when you do get one, you just do the J juice, do your waterfalls, right afterwards and then deal with whatever programming that's in that, because you can't get away from it. No matter what, you're breathing it in or you're going to get it, injected. But you're still going to open up your first and second lines of defense no matter what. The reason why people get the therapeutics is because they don't have the first and second lines of defense really exercised, so they have to get something that's going to lower the intensity so they don't have to keep coughing things out. It's bypassing their first and second lines because they have been taught to bypass the first and second lines. That's why the therapeutics exist. So if you already know that you can expel, then you get a therapeutic and whatever. It's not a big freaking deal. Eat the food, deal with the symptoms you're going to have to anyways, and there is no problem. No one's going to throw you in jail. No one's going to blame that you hurt other people, because that's where it's going now. If you don't get the therapeutic, they're going to say all the whatever are the ones that are causing this. And just because you got the therapeutic doesn't mean that you caved in. Now you understand, and you're not afraid, and you're not being fear, and you're not being brave. You get it in a logical way. But I'm telling you, those that truly do not understand will be fearful of the therapeutic, will be fearful of the virus, or will be brave with the virus and brave with the therapeutics. But you truly must understand the world that you live in. And there's a lot of freaking deception, a lot of withholding. What is deception? Lying by omission. A lot of lying by omission in this world. And making you think that life is death. I mean, if I can substantiate some kind of nefariousness, well, I know they said that, I know that they said that you said that you accept death as the outcome, which, okay, but you still want to live, right? Okay, so how does that work? How do you accept death as the outcome but still want to live and then apply all these antibiotics and taking out organs and suctioning the mucus out of you? But you've accepted that because that's what you've been taught. And so, yes, brainwashing is not just in the military. And let me tell you, I've been in the military. I've been through basic training. Okay, I've been through it all. But brainwashing is also in families. Brainwashing is also through friends, through cliques. Brainwashing is through all of your different echo chambers and groups on Facebook. And when you are being brainwashed, you won't have any sense of logic because it's all about emotions. You're adding some kind of major chemical reaction like words or a solution that has all this high energy substance to it. Yeah, you're going to have people react and they won't have any logic to them. Absolutely none. And then again, you're fighting somebody else's wars. And so that's why you just kind of stay on your own, because I'm going to tell you, the drama out there is going to be insane. People are going to want to go out there and do stuff. And then when they go out and do stuff, they're going to get some kind of, they're going to catch something. And it's going to affect the way they think. It's going to affect everything. And they'll be easily triggered. And so, or they'll just die outright. I mean, you get the luxury of getting cancer disease, chronic illness, and anger issues, but that doesn't last too long. So I'm going to go and do my stuff, but I wanted to show you the correlation between word chemistry and chemistry. Because alchemy is also word chemistry. And then also in the lab, when you're applying different solutions to a prototype. It's all the same shit. And it's amazing how everything is connected. So, thanks guys. Bye.